It's one of those days where I kind of wish that I named this channel Cover Killer Reviews Naked. Whew. It's a hot one, again, much like yesterday. But it could be a very good omen for this album. Perhaps the temperature reading, the number that you see that reflects the warmth, could also reflect just how warm of a reception that we get for The Evil Divide by Death Angel, the brand new album in 2016. We've already had a couple of thrash metal bands come through this year and deliver brand new releases. Names such as Destruction and Megadeth immediately come to mind, and both of those have had some fairly decent response. Whenever it comes to Death Angel, though, they have a very interesting background. They're considered to be an important facet of the Bay Area thrash metal scene from the 1980s. Their first 3 albums are all deemed to be, in some way or shape, a classic of the subgenre, and it's also really kind of a fun fact to note that Rob Flynn of Machine Head started off with these guys. He actually wrote a couple of the tracks that were on their debut, but didn't stick around to record them. He ended up in Vio-Lence, who was, I guess, a rival. Didn't even realize there was a rivalry going on back then. Sue me, I was like 4. But at any rate, here we are back in 2016. We fast forward, and the band, which had gone through a lengthy hiatus, is now back, and they're back with a vengeance. I love the fact that this 15-year reign of thrash metal's return, which really by and large was inspired a lot by a cancer benefit, is certainly showcasing the genre all over again. And it's some of the old dogs that are doing the talking. They're using some of the modern technology to their advantage. Let's see what Death Angel's able to accomplish. They've already accomplished a lot ever since their return, but could this finally be the feather in their cap? Whenever you start The Moth, which is a 4-minute and 38-second long introductory song for this album, the very first track, the very first inkling of the Evil Divide that you get, you start to realize that perhaps this title is no misnomer. It's not 3 cute words thrown together in order to try to make their album sound brutal. It instead is a very visual representation of the line that is drawn between you prior to listening to this release and perhaps post. Before listening to this, you were in a different place altogether, but now you've entered into the Evil Divide. Now you've entered into a brand new sense of anger. This is a very angry disc. This is one that thrusts its way right into your soul, right into your lap, and especially into your ears, considering, that's how music is consumed. But this is a track, not to mention, this is an overall 4.5 minutes that starts to make you think about a couple of things and kind of get that hopefulness, that hopeful jitter that perhaps you've gotten ever since the release of your last stone cold classic of the thrash metal genre. For me, it's Phantom Antichrist. Yeah, you remember all those years ago, the first Perfect 10 that this channel ever divulged? That's exactly what it got me thinking about almost immediately. It reminded me of that because of its raw ferocity. This is one that doesn't pull any punches, and while many of the thrash albums that have been released ever since Phantom Antichrist have mirrored it, it's not something that has felt as tight. It's not something that's had that same sort of je ne sais quoi. It's one that instead has felt like at times it beats around the bush. So, like a lot of those other moments, I started off with such lofty expectations, and then was, slowly but surely kind of chopped down like a tree. But with Death Angel, with this album, with The Evil Divide, that really didn't happen. This is 10 tracks. There's not a track on here that goes over the 6-minute mark, and really the one that comes the closest is Let the Pieces Fall, which is the final cut. And it's one that's ripping, roaring with guitar solos aplenty, great tight songwriting, that it's one that you almost wish would go 8, maybe 9 minutes. Maybe have them pull a Vector and pull off something that's close to 11 or 12. Just have them keep playing. This is a group that was able to really master their own personality and their own sensibilities on this album. But let's talk about some things a little bit more specifically. Cause for Alarm and Lost showcase sort of the 2 different sides of Death Angel. And it's not one that showcases them like being a progressive band and all of a sudden a thrash band. No, this is all a direct thrash assault. But Cause for Alarm showcases their ability to rip-roar through something extremely quick at nearly 3.5 minutes. Whereas with Lost, they have a little bit more time, 1.5 minutes more, as it's nearly 5 minutes in length, in order to expand their own horizons, put in a little bit more in the way of guitar soloing, either that or just tighter atmospheric songwriting, and the atmosphere, of course, is angry as hell, angry as all get out, and really just continue to blast your ears, not to mention give you more and more of those keynote, high-note feelings, those feelings of that last masterpiece. It's one that's not letting you have an opportunity to breathe. It's also not giving you an opportunity to think anything less of it. It's impressing you with its riffs, it's impressing you with its tight songwriting. Nothing on this so far is giving you a reason to dislike it. Going in the Father of Lies and Hell to Pay, once again the anger continues to sear forward. And it's one that's thrust, again, through the power of the solo, through the power of just fantastic overall songwriting. It's a repetitious theme, I understand, but in reality, this is one of those albums that you really can't describe it as anything else. There's very few in the way of weak moments on The Evil Divide. And really, we could sit here and explore each and every track as though this is a dissection project, as though we're, in a lab and I'm going to cut open this album like a frog, but you're going to receive the same damn thing. Much like a frog, the same parts are in each and every one of these songs. It's not one that is really subject to a lot of shifting. And you might think, well, typically isn't a little bit of, difference a good thing? Well, absolutely. But whenever what you're doing is being performed at such a high level, it really doesn't matter. You shouldn't step outside of that comfort zone because you're already exceeding at what you're doing. It's one of those things and one of those famous notions that a lot of bands sometimes get clouded in whenever they're writing. Sometimes they think that just because they write in a specific style and they do it all the time, they can find enough variation. Rare times, it actually does happen, but a lot of times the variation eventually does become stale. But this is an album that moves forward so quickly. It's one that if you don't, attach yourself to it, it leaves you behind. And based off of that, it doesn't have the opportunity in order for you to sit there and feel like they've done something wrong. Mainly because all of the riffs are so solid, there's an ear-pleasing element to it that you're just satisfied. You're satisfied with the experience. You're satisfied with being steamrolled by what this album's able to present. The percussive notion of the bass and the drums kind of just smacks you in the face like a concrete block. Meanwhile, the steamroller comes and just destroys you again with frantic soloing, tortured screams, not to mention just an overall feeling that all of that headbanging training that you've been doing for all these years are actually going to pay off for a thrash album in 2016. This is that album. This is the disc that now is going to set the brand new precedent. Is it better than the Vector album that was just released? Not quite. No, that Vector album was an absolute masterpiece. It was one that was able to handle things, though, in a very different way. Its stylish combination of elements was able to give it a lot of character, was able to give it a lot of balls. But this album's balls are based around the fact that they keep it simple. They do the KISS method. They keep it simple, stupid, and they are able to punch you right in the dick with it. And based off of that, this is an album that's very worthy of praise. 94 out of 100 on this disc. No, it doesn't quite match up to Phantom Antichrist, but then again, Phantom Antichrist could very well, for me at least, be a once-in-a-lifetime type of album. For you, might have felt that album was not as good, and if that's the case, I completely understand. But I think that you'll definitely dig this album a lot, whether you thought that Phantom Antichrist was the bee's knees or the shit's bits. I don't know, making this shit up on the fly. I love this disc considering that steamroll effect doesn't give you the opportunity to really come up for air, and that's a beautiful notion whenever it comes to a thrash disc, especially whenever it's thrash that's being done with such excellence as this album is. Death Angel, you should be extremely proud for what you have accomplished with this album. It's something that no doubt, as a band, you have been aiming to perform and have definitely done your best to do so. But here in 2016, the whole concept of teaching an old dog new tricks no longer applies, as now the concept is that you're teaching the dog to be the big dog, to be the dog that all the other dogs want to be. And Death Angel so far in 2016 has done that. What do you guys think about this album? My name is coverkillernation. The comments box is right below this video. I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear your opinions all about The Evil Divide by Death Angel. Does it match up to the, grandiose notion that perhaps I've painted? Or is it instead one that you feel is not as strong as has been represented? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll talk to you guys next time whenever we talk about another album, one that probably will not be seen as favorably. Yeah, we're going to talk about Graveyard Classics, the new one, by 6 Feet Under next. I'm not holding out for a miracle. Take care.